What's going on? My name is Bim, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Logitech G502 Lightspeed. Love this thing. All right, let me tell you a little story. So I started out with a Razer Death Adder, which I still think is the more comfortable mouse just because of the way I kind of prefer a more palm-based grip. But then it broke, double click issue, so I went and got the Logitech G502 Proteus Spectrum. I think that's the second generation. And I was super happy with it. I loved it. And it was so amazing. But the problem was it came with a cable, right? And the old monitor that I had, well, the same monitor, but the old setup was that there wasn't a monitor arm. So that leg had a cable management hole where you put like all your mice and keyboard cables through. And I put the 502 cable through there. But every time I would go for a quick turnaround or a quick flick to the right, it would always snag in the hole, snag on something. So I got kind of annoyed with that and said, okay, so I need a Logitech mouse that's wireless because I'm kind of a Logitech fan. I came up with the G703. The 903 was a little too expensive for me, so I said, all right, 703, which had fewer features than the 502. One of the worst things, one of the worst issues I had with the 703 was that there was no DPI indicator. It didn't tell you which DPI setting you were on. But whatever, 703 worked really well for me. I loved the wireless feature. That was in January 2019. 4 months later, Logitech had this post on their Facebook and their Instagram. Best mouse in the world reinvented, or something like that. And I made a comment. I was like, if this is the 502 wireless, I'm going to lose my shit. And guess what? It was the 502 fucking wireless. I can't live without the 502. So I sold it for a fairly good price because it was like 4 months old, and bought this guy. And I love it. Let's talk specs. All right. So it's got Lightspeed technology, which is what all Logitech wireless mice use these days. It's supposed to be very efficient with the battery life, and it communicates very efficiently with the dongle, making it practically move like a wired mouse, which to me is apparent because I noticed no latency. I could just suck, right? Or my eyes could just be terrible, but I noticed no latency. And then you've got the Hero sensor. I actually skipped the G502 Hero because I was super happy with the Proteus Spectrum that I didn't feel like I needed to upgrade the sensor because to me it was already doing really well. But this thing has the Hero sensor. It's got adjustable weights. Later I'll show you the weights, and 11 programmable buttons. Later we'll go over the buttons. So it goes up to 16,000 DPI. Personally, I use 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. I don't find myself switching a lot between the DPI settings in game, but I find myself switching a lot per game. Hero sensor, which we know is really good. Response rate is up to 1000 Hertz, and the microprocessor is a 32-bit ARM chip. Let's talk dimensions. It is 132 millimeters tall. No, it says height, but I guess it's when you're holding it this way, I guess. Because if it's height this way, that's not 5 inches, right? So this is about 5 inches. It's about 5.2 inches or 132 millimeters tall. Width would be 2.95 inches or 75 millimeters. And depth would be 40 millimeters. Now, by default, it's 114 grams. And I measured it. It's exactly 114 grams. But what I love about this and what I love about what I like in my mice is a little bit of heft. So it comes with this thing. This thing carries the dongle and the extension for the cable. Good thing about the cable is braided and really nice. I didn't want to remove it from the PC because it's such a hassle, but it's a really good cable. So you put this at the end of that, and this kind of acts as your receiver. You could actually just take the tiny ass dongle and put that in your computer. But the good thing about having this is when the cable is somewhere accessible, you just remove this, you plug in the G502, it becomes a wired 502 while it charges. If you don't have PowerPlay, PowerPlay is the wireless, not wireless, it is actually wired, wireless charging cable, not cable, fucking mouse pad for Logitech. So you'll never have to worry about losing battery, so you just keep it there and it charges while your computer is on, while there's power going into the power plate. It's a little expensive. It's like 10,000 pesos just for the mouse pad. So I felt like, I don't really need it. Anyway, this thing also holds 4 2-gram weights and 2 16-gram weights. And this is how they go on. So remove the plate. It's magnetic. So there's a couple teeth back there. And then you just pull from this point. And it's really easy. Out here, you'll have slots for the 2-gram weights. So, you know, you could make it weighted towards one side or the other, but don't do that. Ta-da! And then this little thing is actually where you would put the PowerPlay battery if you had it. I don't, because I don't need PowerPlay. But this also holds the 4-gram weights. This thing has a magnet. It just snaps in place. Put it in there. Snaps in place. Perfect. This turns it on and off. These are Teflon feet. That's kind of standard for the 502 mice. Let's talk about the 11 buttons. So I love the scroll wheel. I didn't think I'd miss the scroll wheel, but I did when I upgraded to the 703. So it's got 2 settings. One is a kind of rigid, you can actually hear it, rigid scrolling, like tick, tick, tick. Or you could press this button, which releases it for continuous scrolling, and I like that. I like that for productivity, not really for gaming. And then this G9 button is a battery indicator. Ta-da! Speaking of the battery, so I got this a couple days ago, like maybe 3 days ago, and then I haven't charged it. I've been using the factory charge for the last 3, 4, 5 days. And it's still about at 40%. So it will actually last you, without the lights, I like the lights, without the lights, 60 hours of continuous use, about 48 to 45 hours with the default light setting, because you can customize the light so you can make it dance or whatever. Making more complex lighting patterns will drain the battery a little faster, but I just like it blue and I just like it steady. Okay, by default, left click, right click. The mouse also clicks in. G7 and G8 are your DPI up and down. And there's your indicator. And I really like the indicator because like you don't have to go and try to feel for what setting you're on, you just look. And then you've got the sniper button or the Dpi Shift button, which reduces, well, it doesn't necessarily have to reduce. By default, it reduces it to the lowest setting of your DPI for like sniper shots, but I think you can program it to have a different setting. It shifts to a different DPI. These are your standard thumb buttons, your back and forth buttons when you're using it on a browser. So those are your buttons. Now let's talk about build quality. It's got a nice non-slip material back here. This is where on a right-handed person your pinky would rest. It's nice and rubbery. The same material, or well, the same pattern at least, continues all the way at the back, at the bottom, and all the way here where your thumb is supposed to rest. The plastic is really high grade. It feels very nice on your fingers. It's quite, it's matte as well, except for the buttons, but they don't really, they're kind of glossy, but they don't really leave any fingerprints, right? So I have a 304, I use it in the office, and when I play like FPS during dinner breaks, like Crunker, I have a hard time aiming. When I brought the G502 Proteus Spectrum there, aiming was a lot easier because of just like, I guess I'm more accustomed to the mouse. So no mouse will make you aim like miraculously better. But if the more you use a certain mouse, the more you get used to it, the better you'll do with that mouse. Biggest concern with this mouse is the cost. There is absolutely no reason to not upgrade to this, except for the cost. The cost is about 2 times the G502 Hero. So this thing cost me about 8,000 pesos. The Proteus Hero, the Hero cost about 3,500. So a little bit more than twice. But if you've got the scratch, you could probably sell your 502. I sold my 502 and a pair of headphones to be able to afford this. It's a really good purchase. If you're used to the 502, you're going to love the freedom of being wireless. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you guys found this useful, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. You know we're trying to get back our monetization. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.